Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Juliette Schuler. I have two roles at Zeta. As Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, I'm very focused on driving our diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy across the business and laying a foundation for positive impact for both Zeta and in the industry. Zeta DEI is a tremendous business priority for Zeta and a fundamental part of our core strategy. My other role is SVP of the international business based in London, even though I am from New York, and I partner on a regular basis with our clients to drive business outcomes and support their transformation journeys. So a lot of what we've talked about here today is relevant in all of our markets. I'm very pleased to introduce Heidi Zach, co-founder and CEO of Third Love, David Spector, co-founder and president of Third Love, and welcome back David A. Steinberg, Zeta Global's co-founder, CEO, and chairman. Today's discussion will touch on rapid digital transformation, and how CEOs must balance revenue growth while adapting to the evolving expectations of the new customer. I would like to give a very warm welcome to Heidi and David and hand back over to David Steinberg.
Hi, everybody. And obviously, when they set us up in these cameras, they didn't allow for the sun shining right behind us. So it does appear as if David and I are in the witness protection program. We're all scared here. We're trying to make sure that we stay safe. Heidi, of course, looks stunning from Colorado. Is that where you are today?
Utah.
Utah, well, sort of the same, but no, joking for all of our clients who are out there. Listen, we are super excited to have Heidi and David here, who are not just two of the best entrepreneurs in the world, but very, very dear friends of mine. And, you know, listen, when they first came up with the idea for Third Love, which I'm going to let them spend a little time on, because I don't think anybody could really describe it as well as they can. I'm not sure that when they first had these thoughts, they knew that in 2020, they would be named the third largest intimate apparel company in the world on the internet. And that is quite an accomplishment, considering a number of the big companies they compete with are multinational 30 to 40-year-old enterprises. But I'm David Steinberg. I spoke earlier today. I am CEO, chairman, and co-founder of Zeta. Reality is that we are living in an extraordinary year. 2020, sort of 1918 plus 1929 plus 1968 equals 2020 is sort of what I've been coining. And we're bringing in one of the top direct-to-consumer marketing and manufacturing companies in the world in Third Love. David, thank you for coming. Heidi, we appreciate your making time. I know you're at an off-site retreat that is very important to you and your business, so stepping away for us is really important. I know all of our global clients and everybody on the call and the video appreciate it. Heidi, I'll throw it to you first. Tell us a bit about Third Love and how we got here in your journey.
Yeah, well, thanks for having us. We're excited to be here. Third Love, if you don't know who we are, we're a digital-first women's lifestyle brand focused on creating elevated essentials for everyday wear. And Dave Spector, who is also my husband, and I started this company in 2012. So it's been an 8-year journey, and we're just getting started, honestly. And we've really built the brand with inclusivity at our core through offering the most sizes possible, to offering online tools to help women find their fit, and then really creating a brand that we hope women feel that they can be a part of.
Heidi, as usual, beautifully said. I keep waiting, as I've been berating David over the last 36 hours we've spent together. Where's the menswear? I mean, come on, this is just not fair to the poor men. But to jump ahead, David, obviously we're in 2020. This is a defining year for most companies. How has Third Love pivoted into COVID to not waste this crisis?
So yeah, it's been an interesting year for every business, especially ones that are 100% online and all digital. The only way to buy Third Love is through our website. And so we were certainly well positioned for this in March and April, we thought the worst, like many people on this call. I had numerous discussions with David, who was very adamant about a V-shaped sort of correction here. So I think we're in the other side of that now, which is actually really exciting. Potentially a W correction.
I've said W. Yeah, I believe.
You didn't say W.
I was going to say, I didn't say V.
You didn't say V.
W. Yeah.
You did say W, actually. I want to correct that. And hopefully we're then on the other side of that. And I think certainly consumer confidence has come back a lot, and we've been the beneficiary of that. We offer the largest size range of any single brand in the United States. And so the TAM, the total addressable market for the intimate apparel business, is 13 to 15 billion in the United States, and it's actually growing at about an 8 to 10% CAGR. And so the business overall was doing quite well in the United States. It was driven by retail, with most of that market share continually being, that growth being moving to online. So we were already well positioned, but we had an ability to go after a much larger share of that TAM because of our size range and our diversity. So we were really well positioned for the year.
It's great. Heidi, what could other marketers learn from what you did in COVID to try to either reconnect with customers who had shopped with you, attract new customers, or go deeper with customers who are already buying from you?
Yeah, so I think when we think about customer mindset and the evolution of that and how quickly it's changed, I think as marketers, it's really put us all to the test to say, where's our customer today, this week, right? I mean, I think we all used to work on annual basis, quarterly, monthly, and I feel like for all of us the past 6 to 8 months, you're almost working on this like weekly basis, and it's challenging as a company. And so for us, I think the biggest thing was really thinking about how we leverage everything we have. I think a lot of times as marketers, we like to create new things. And I think where we found a ton of efficiency, which was really surprising, but a really good learning for us, is in everything we've created in the past. How do we take all of that? How do we change or cut different messages in to make it really applicable to the customer's current mindset, and really leveraging what we had? I mean, we didn't do any new photo shoots for almost 6 months. So that's, to me, is a big unlock of just leveraging creative assets and segmenting and targeting and meeting the customer where she is.
It's great. And so as you think about this crisis, and I'll throw it out to both of you, I don't know exactly who sort of picks up the ball here. This is always an interesting dichotomy to have co-CEOs who are married, and going out to dinner with you guys is always a thrill for my wife and I. So it's always fun to see how we ask the questions and who sort of jumps in. A lot of the CMOs watching are probably not as digitally focused as you are, right? You're 100% digital. I mean, I think everybody is at least got some component of digital at this point, or you probably have some pretty major challenges as an organization. How do you advise other CMOs or other companies that have a brand that is probably looking at this as an opportunity to accelerate their digital footprint? How do you advise them? Like when, let's say, a friend of yours called and said, yep, I've got this global brand. What would you do if you were me?
I can go first, and Dave, maybe you'll have other thoughts in addition to mine. I mean, I think the number one thing when you think about a digital experience for any product is how do you make it better than the in-store experience, like at its core, right? Because we're not necessarily just competing with other online players. Of course we are, and that's one set of competitive landscape, but the other is stores. So, we really think about when a woman goes into, a great Nordstrom and has that bra fit, what's that experience like? It's actually, for some women, really good. So how are we offering a better level of service, a better level of engagement, a better understanding of who the customer is when she comes to thirdlove.com than she's going to get walking into, for example, a Nordstrom, right? Or walking into her local bra boutique. And for us, that's really been centered around technology and our Fit Finder. So our Fit Finder, you can find a recommended size in under 60 seconds. We've had 17 million women complete Fit Finder. That data collection allows us to segment, target, market, understand our customer in a way that's very unique and that adds value to her. And I think a lot of us get lost in collecting data, and data's core to what we all do day to day. Well, data is great, but you got to use it and leverage it in a way that makes the customer experience better. And so that's really what we focus on. And that would be what I'd say is that for whatever category you're in, how do you leverage technology and that digital experience in a unique way to bring value to your customer? Because if you can create that unlock, you can do anything.
Dave, did you have anything to add to that?
I mean, the data and using a marketing cloud like the Zeta Marketing Cloud allows you to, in a much smarter way, play what online marketing is, which I like to say is a massive game in the tune of tens of millions or hundreds of millions of whack-a-mole, right? And the objective being, when that thing pops up, you need to be right there to knock it down and convert it. And the problem is you have to know where it's going to pop up and who the person's going to pop up and what sector to be in, because you're talking about tens of millions or hundreds of millions of users at any given moment. And where is that going to be? Where do you need to actually spend your dollars and your marketing objectives so you are right there ready to grab that customer when she or he is ready?
And you just earned your dinner tonight. I appreciate that. Heidi.
Did he pay you for that? I'm just kidding.
Oh, no, but I feed him. I've been feeding him since he got here, but
It's been all gruel.
I know. But listen, now you might get actual good food tonight. We'll see.
Thank God.
Heidi, what about being a DTC or direct-to-consumer company has really benefited you through COVID? And what about it has been more challenging than maybe if you weren't?
Well, I think obviously the convenience element of being online, of course, stating the obvious. I think the consumer mindset, she or he is willing to try new things right now out of necessity. And that creates this really interesting opportunity to convert somebody who wasn't willing to try before. And I think we've seen the benefit of that. I think on the flip, one of the things that I've seen recently is just the amount of digital shopping that's gone back to brick and mortar in the past 2 months in particular. If you look at those stats, it's amazing how much physical retail, traditional retail has rebounded. So what that tells me is that as much as we're getting women to switch, there's also a lot of consumers who are going to go back to doing what they did before. So it's not just like, oh, now we buy everything online all the time, right? Certainly.
Yeah, Dave?
I think that I could have said it better than I.
Just say Ibid. That's what I say after my wife says something.
When we started Third Love, online penetration of overall retail was single digits. And clearly during the pandemic and in the last 2 years, really, it shot up dramatically. But retail, I think remarkably and thankfully, because it's such an important part of our economy and it employs such a large number of people, has a resurgence that I think everybody was surprised at. Shocking. And being in New York, we're based in San Francisco, but being here in New York, where you hear all this, for all intents and purposes, fake news about how New York is dying.
Yeah, it took me 45 minutes to get across town in a car yesterday. I mean, it is definitely, there's traffic. Now, a lot of that is people are taking less mass transportation, therefore there's more cars, therefore there might be less people, but it's definitely not I can tell you that. We are in New York today. It's my first time in this office in 6 or 7 months. And I will tell you, to your point, Heidi, it feels great to be in the office. Like, it's really nice to be here. Feels good to be sort of back in the swing. Retail obviously is dominated for, thousands of years, right? This is not new. It started in bazaars in the Middle East many, many years ago. The Romans were very focused on retail environments. The internet didn't even exist until DARPA created it in the 1960s, and then we sort of rolled to where we are today. Ultimately, the retail experience is really hard to replicate, right? And you mentioned Nordstrom's, which of course is, in my opinion, I'm in New York City. We didn't even have one here until just a few years ago, but known for that exceptional customer experience, right? The stories abound of people returning tires to their stores that they don't even sell tires, right? But at the end of the day, how do you replicate that type of experience online?
Super hard. I think it's one of the things that I always said in the early days of us pitching is we compete on a flat 2-dimensional 5.7 inch or 6.1 inch screen on a mobile phone. 75% of our traffic is mobile, or say a 13-inch laptop. 2-dimensional, there's nothing visually there except for our website. There's no smells, obviously smell, and it's a big part of retail experience. There's no music. There's nothing else auditory.
Could play music off your website.
Could, but that's if we use Flash, right? And we're not going to do that.
Well, nobody's using, yeah.
Nobody's using Flash.
I wouldn't recommend launching Flash this week, but keep going.
Thank you for the idea, David.
Yeah.
Really good ideas.
Listen, we could send every potential customer a CD.
So now we're hiring Flash developers. So yeah, I mean, I think that replicating an in-store experience is extremely hard. Certainly the shift to online over the last decade has helped because consumers are used to shopping online. High-speed internet penetration is 98% in the United States. 100% of people have, or almost 100% have, a smartphone of some shape or form. So we have an ability to reach people and provide really unique, incredible experiences using the latest web frameworks. However, it still isn't as good as a retail experience. So what we compete against is people not wanting to go to a store. And in our category, what's very unique about our category is that women don't generally enjoy shopping for it.
Yeah, so I'm going to go to Heidi. 17 million women, you said, have used your fitting tool.
Yeah, and so we've collected a lot of data points, not only on her preferences, where she bought her last bra, competitive research, breast shape, fit issues, but also really understanding obviously where she's coming from, connecting those dots, and then being able to pretty accurately recommend not just size and style, but understanding where she is on that journey and what products and experiences is she looking at any moment, from being a prospect, to a customer and then beyond. And so I think that's important. And then to add on to your last question, I mean, what I think about is it's customer service. So, one of the benefits of shopping in a store that you love is that they know you, whether that's a Starbucks and you walk in and they know your name, or, any store, it's the one-to-one relationship that's created. And so I do think what's interesting is that we've trained fit stylists at Third Love to be as knowledgeable as the best bra fitters in the country. And its bras are complicated. So there's a level of education that's needed. And there's a service level that our customer expects and that we provide. And I think that's a big differentiator. And also being able to do that through other mediums beyond just email and web, but really thinking about text and a different ways of speaking with our customers.
So just to follow up on that, and I'm going to totally switch topics. You've got this huge amount of data. You're using it to create the best possible online consumer experience for intimate apparel. How do you then take that data and translate it into growing into new customers? Because I think a lot of companies, you hit on a point that to me, I've been saying for 20 years, data for data's sake is not valuable. It's how do you make data actionable, right? And I think it's one of the things, just to toot our horn here, because listen, that's sort of what we're doing today. But at Zeta, making data actionable is at the heart and soul of what we do. How do you guys take all of this data and make it actionable, not just for the better customer tool and for better experience? How do you extrapolate that and then help to scale your business?
I mean, one good example is when we went into plus size, extended, what we call extended size. So when we launched an additional 25 sizes about 2 years ago. So how did we even figure out what sizes to launch? How did we understand how many women there were that might purchase from us? Well, that was done through the Fit Finder and through other ways of data collection up front to say, if it's a size we don't carry, where is she? What does she want? And what sizes are next. And from there, how do you build up that wait list? So when we launched our extended sizes 2 years ago, we had 1.3 million women on a wait list waiting to buy that product. So I do think that you can really understand, you know, we're not all servicing everyone all at once. So when you are thinking about strategy and just where you're going next, if you can effectively get that up front, it can help be the roadmap for product development and category expansion.
I was going to say, before you said product development, I was going to say one of the best product development stories I've ever heard, right? So you built the consumer base through people who had been putting data in. You saw the demand through that, you filled the demand, and then you had the logical extension with the 1.3 million people waiting for the product, right? I'll switch topics yet again, because this is what Megan gave me the document to do. But predictions, 2021 and beyond. If we look at the markets today, right, on one side of the world, you effectively have companies heavily focused on travel, hospitality, and entertainment, right? Not a great time to own a Broadway theater, right? On the other side of the trade, you have Zoom and Clorox, right? So, you know, most of us sort of fit into the middle of that, right? We're not, you know, I mean, some are here, some are there, but you're sort of in the middle of those two trades. What do you see for 2021 and beyond for how the consumer brand relationship changes because of what's happening today? Who wants to take that? Oh my God, nobody wants to take it. I've asked such a bad question.
I mean, I actually, so I think that I think what's most interesting is whether you can deliver on converting and retaining your new customer as, you know, COVID eventually goes away and the pandemic eventually subsides. Have you created a behavior and a customer or a product that's so awesome that they're not going to switch back to what they did before? That's going to be, you know, the crux of everyone, right? And whether that's, you know, from a more focused brick and mortar focused brand, understanding how much of that shift is going to go back into store versus online, or for us, kind of thinking about vice versa, which is we were planning to open 5 stores this year and we had 1 pop-up in New York and we shut it down in March. And so now we're rethinking, right, physical retail. So I think that still remains to be seen.
Well, the flip side is it's probably the lowest cost, lowest barrier to entry to ever opening retail, right? And by the way, I loved when you had the pop-up in New York because Dave was here all the time. So I got to see him. It was great. Dave, retail. I mean, do you guys end up using this crisis to build out a retail platform, or is it still too risky?
It's interesting. Being in New York made me really start thinking about that. And there's the number of tier 1 properties that are open that are probably exceedingly cheap right now made me think that perhaps now is a good time.
Heidi, are you regretting letting him come to New York now?
No, I do believe, as much as I believe that women don't want to go to a store to buy a bra. A bra is such a hard purchase. I think you need stores to help build a brand and build an experience for women who want to shop in different ways. So I do believe in physical retail to some extent.
Well, listen, it's worked for that little company called Apple. I mean, nobody would have ever thought that Apple would need retail, right? But here they are. They went from 500 billion to $1 trillion to $2 trillion in almost 24 months. And most people would say that taking a large percentage of their marketing budget and consolidating it into a retail ecosystem worked. Although, you know, right up the mall from them, you have the Microsoft stores, or you had. They have now officially said they're closing them, which, you know, quite frankly, probably didn't work for Microsoft. How do you become the Apple of intimate apparel from a retail perspective, and maybe not Microsoft?
I think it's actually we should use that line in our company.
Well, I just made it up.
Okay.
You're welcome to have it.
It's a tall order. I think that anybody would be lucky to replicate any part of Apple's success. And certainly retail is they have a great experience with great people that can help you in really beautiful stores. I think our opportunity certainly is similar, except for the fact that in many cases, we don't need, in many parts of the buying ecosystem for what we have, you don't need a retail store. So I think we don't need a footprint like what Apple has. Now, they probably said that too when they had 100 stores, that we don't need more, because they hit every major city, and then now they have 500 or 1,000 stores. So who knows what the future holds? I think the pandemic probably has made even Apple rethink their retail strategy.
I'm sure.
You need fewer stores. I think ours would be similar. We built a sizable business today and are proud of where we're at. We have a lot more to go, certainly. And we measure our success at the company on impact. And certainly revenue is a part of that, and new customers is very important. But ultimately, are we having an impact? And if we need retail in with certain demographics, say older women, or in certain cities, to reach those consumers because they otherwise would not buy from us, that's the opportunity.
Yeah, so like I remember, and this company has now since been bought by Walmart, there's a company called Bonobos, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with. I'm sure a lot of people on the Zoom are not. My son wanted some Bonobos pants, so we went into the store and we picked out all the pants, and I went up to the register, and the guy said, okay, they'll be at your house in 2 days. I was like, what do you mean? We want the pants. He's like, no, we don't sell pants. We only have merchandise to try, and then we ship it to you, an inventory-free model effectively, which, you know, didn't make all the sense in the world to me at the time. But how does that differentiated business model play for what you do? And then further, how do you think other companies should be rethinking their business models going forward because of this crisis?
Yeah, I think building on the retail point, it's like, what is that retail experience? And this has been a conversation going on for 20 years, I think, about physical retail, what it should be, you know, how it's differentiated. I mean, one of the learnings we had in our pop-up store in New York was a woman doesn't need to walk out with everything, but she does need to walk out with something. So we thought we could get maybe by having zero inventory. And look, there's an immediate response that you want to feel like you actually accomplished something or walked away with something. You don't need everything. But I think that blend of what can be shipped, what can you store, and how you do that. For us, it's like with 84 bra sizes, like we had to be really thoughtful about inventory in the store. But certainly I think going fully without inventory is very difficult. And something that was a big learning for us as a company when we tested.
And if you could give any advice about sort of business transformation, and I know this is very general, right? Because you have a lot of different industries that play across a lot of different product categories, but just pretend you're teaching Business 101 at Harvard, which, knowing you well, one day you will most likely be doing. But what would be sort of that very high level business transformation advice would you give? And by the way, they just figured out how to brighten us. Like, this is wow, this is exciting.
I'm starting to see your faces a little bit more.
Well, obviously they caught the guys, and we're now being let out of witness protection. But in all seriousness, business transformation, never waste a crisis. What do you think?
I think one of the biggest challenges we're all going to face, and we're seeing it already right now with the election and the media space and how crowded it is just how do you get somebody's attention? And so the more and more businesses that shift to digital and switch to online, you're not just competing with your competitive set, you're competing with anything that your consumer might buy. And so in my mind, it's how do you create engagement and content that keeps your customer coming back and talking with you or listening to you or following you on Instagram or reading your blog? How do you create that connection and community with your base and then allow them to speak for you in this super crowded landscape? And to me, I mean, that keeps me up at night almost every night. It's differentiation, it's messaging, it's connecting with our customer. I think that's the biggest thing we all face as we roll into next year.
Here, I thought it was your two young children that kept you up every night, but
And actually, we've been talking about this on our leadership team, because you would think that a company like ours, and I'm just being very honest, is really close to our customer. We're way better than a huge corporation that I'm sure you have many on the call, that is mostly offline or mostly retail, mostly wholesale. We actually have a challenge with millions of customers now feeling like we're close to the customer. We just talked about this. We just had this realization that I haven't answered a customer service ticket in way too long. That's a problem. And it was this realization, it was this slap on my face that we used to do that.
now was she slapping you or were you slapping
She
yourself?
probably was slapping me too. But we all slapped each other's faces and said, we need to wake up and act like the startup that we used to be. Because we need to be close to our customers and listen to them. And literally, we are not talking to them anymore. We should, in some shape or form, in some way to aggregate feedback from people that don't convert or people that do convert about challenges that they're having. And it's something that we're struggling with. I'm sure many people struggle with the same.
Well, how do you stay close to your roots and agile as you transition from being a startup to a more, sort of embedded company or company of scale? Heidi?
I mean, this is a big one because we've gone from being sort of the ankle biter, right? The little one who was, barking up the VS tree for a long time to now being big enough that we've encouraged a lot of new entrants to the space. So now we're sort of the big startup, right? And so we're in a very awkward sort of teenage phase right now, I always say. And I mean, in my minds, we've elevated mostly by bringing in industry experts and real leaders. When you're a startup, you have a lot of generalists who are just doing the best they can, and now we're really focused on different specific verticals and teammates who have those pockets of expertise, and just trying to stay quick and nimble, which is always a challenge, even at our size. So I get it. I mean, I think it's hard to constantly transform yourself, especially at the pace that we all have to today. Brands used to evolve like every 5 to 10 years. Now brands evolve every year.
Last question. We're going to let everybody get to whatever it is they're doing after this conference. But I think a lot of companies have streamlined cost structure over the last 6 months, probably in a way that none of us have ever done as quickly as we've done it before, right? How do you keep that agility and use it going forward as an asset versus going back to where you were before, both for your business and other businesses? And how do you think that benefits that organization? David?
I was thinking through our core values and trying to relate it back somehow to those. And I think figuring out a way I was saying this earlier, to stay lean in your thinking. I don't think a company like ours is necessarily lean anymore, if I'm honest. Neither is many of the companies on the conference today. But figuring out a way to have that mindset, have that startup mindset, and have the day one attitude is so important. I think that one of the things that we started to do, and it happened in Q3 for us, is to throw the status quo out the window and take the, I'll give you an example. We had a 117-page manual at one of our distribution centers in Indiana. Our other ones in Los Angeles on the West Coast. And the one in Indiana, they had a 117-page manual that we had given them. And I visited them a month ago, and they said, well, we've got to follow the manual. It's 117 pages. This is what we were given. And I looked at the manual, and it was the same manual that I had developed that was probably 5 pages 7 years ago when we started selling. And then somebody added 5 pages on, then another person we hired added 10, and then another person we hired, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and somehow it got to 117 pages. But many of the pieces in there were mine. And I looked at them and I said, if I had it in front of me right now, and I'm glad that you didn't waste the paper, I would rip it up. And I want to do the same thing across our business through the distribution center, everything that we do, everything that we've been taught, and everywhere else in our business, which is get rid of the status quo and rethink things. And I think that attitude action on our leadership team has really, really helped. And we're getting emails from various leaders sent out to the leadership team alias. Hey, we just eliminated this status quo, we eliminated that, et cetera. Heidi?
Yeah, I think a big learning for us, I'm sure others feel this on the call, has been communication and bringing your team and company along with you, especially when you're not in person. So we've switched to doing weekly all hands, and I think we're sharing more than we ever have with our company, and that incentivizes the team to get behind the idea and implement it quickly. And so an example, and that's a great example that Dave just gave of this crazy manual. Another one is a pricing change. So we looked at the market, we did a lot of analysis, and we know, to get to 10x growth of where we are today, we're inclusive on size in our marketing, our messaging, our community. We're not inclusive, or we weren't, on our price point, which was bras starting at $68, which for some women is too high of a price tag. We made this decision to bring our entry-level price point down to $45, $55 to get more of that bulk of the market. And we brought the team along and we implemented that in 2.5 weeks, a full price change. Not necessarily an easy thing to do. And so I do think we've been able to uphold that pace of change. We started during COVID to make big changes in technology and in other aspects of the business. But I think you have to explain and bring your team along, because they're the ones who are executing. So
yeah, well, by the way, so well said. Transparency, inclusion, when making decisions as a business, to bring your team along, and quite frankly, staying involved in the day-to-day processes, right? Where a 5-page manual can balloon up with your name on it, which gives it so much credibility that some people are scared to make a decision outside of that, even though it was never your intention when you were attempting to replicate a shipping center, probably to save money on shipping to the central part of the country and East Coast, right? So this stuff balloons, especially when it comes directly from a founder, and it sometimes becomes lore. And it's really fascinating to me as we do this. First, I want to thank you guys. This has been really incredible. Heidi, I know how tough it was with your schedule and the date and everything to get you here. So I really appreciate you. David, I tease you all the time, but you're an amazing guy. You're an amazing woman. What you guys have accomplished is incredible. To take an idea as a couple, put your heads down from nothing, and to become the 3rd largest in your category is just, it's an incredible, incredible outcome.